All right, let's get right into it. Look, we all love our dogs, right? I mean, they're part of the family. But what if I told you that lurking inside our best friends is one of the most successful and widespread parasites on the entire planet? We're talking about the common dog roundworm, Toxocara canis. And trust me, its story is way more complex and, frankly, a bit more unsettling than you'd ever imagine.
Just think about it for a second. When you're at the dog park, what do you worry about? Fleas, maybe? Ticks? A little scuffle between the dogs? Sure. But the biggest threat, what if it's completely invisible? We're talking about microscopic eggs shed by the millions into the soil. The same soil where our kids play, where we walk our dogs. This is the world of an unseen invader.
So yeah, this whole story starts with that amazing bond we have with our dogs, but it spirals out into something much, much bigger. We're talking about zoonotic parasites. Now, if you're not familiar, these are the critters that can jump the species barrier from animals to us. And let me tell you, Toxocara canis is an absolute master at making that jump. It basically uses our pets as a vehicle to spread all across the globe.
And I'm not exaggerating here, not one bit. When I say it's one of the most successful, I mean it. This thing is found on literally every inhabited continent. That alone tells you just how sophisticated its life cycle is, and how incredibly tough it is out in the environment. It's a huge public health concern that's just hiding in plain sight.
Okay, so what is this thing exactly? To really get a handle on it, we first need to figure out, where it lives and what kind of organism we're dealing with. And believe it or not, it all starts with its pretty descriptive name. Right, so first things first, Toxocara canis is what we call an endoparasite. Simple enough, endo means it lives inside its host. This is the opposite of an ectoparasite like a flea or a tick, which hangs out on the outside. And here's the really important part. It's a metazoan. That means it's a complex, multicellular animal. We're not talking about some simple single-celled amoeba here. This is a highly evolved roundworm.
And that name I mentioned, it actually tells a pretty cool story. Toxocara, it literally means bow flesh. Kind of weird, right? Well, it comes from the really unique, almost arrow-like shape of the worm's head. It has these wing-like extensions that give it a bow shape. The first naturalists who saw it were so struck by this that the name just stuck. And canis? Well, that part's easy. It's just Latin for of the dog.
So if we look at its official address in the Tree of Life, you can see exactly where it fits. It's an animal, of course. It belongs to the phylum Nematoda. You might know them as the roundworms. And knowing this classification is super important because it helps us understand its biology and even its relatives, like its very close cousin, Toxocara cati, which you'll find mainly in cats.
So, what's the secret to its success? How did it spread across the whole world? Well, it all comes down to its incredibly clever and kind of sinister life cycle. It is an absolute masterpiece of evolution designed to exploit its hosts in all sorts of sneaky ways to make sure it survives. Okay, let's walk through this journey together. It all kicks off when an infected dog, poops. The feces are full of these tiny eggs, but here's the thing, they're not infectious right away. They need a few weeks out in the soil to cook, to embryonate. Then, some other animal, let's say another dog, comes along and accidentally swallows one of these now infective eggs. The larva hatches inside. Now in puppies, it takes this wild journey through the lungs, up the throat, gets swallowed again, and finally grows up into an adult worm in the intestine. But in older dogs, something totally different happens. The larvae just stop. They get arrested in the dog's tissues and go dormant, just waiting. And they can wait for years, until say the dog gets pregnant. Then they reactivate and infect the puppies before they're even born. How crazy is that?
And here's where it gets really mind-boggling. The scale of this is just wow. A single female worm can lay up to, get this, 200,000 eggs in a single day. 200,000! That leads to just massive contamination of the environment. We're talking parks, backyards, kids' sandboxes, all seeded with these unbelievably tough little eggs.
And that is where we enter the picture. If a human accidentally swallows one of those eggs, maybe from unwashed hands after gardening, we become what's known as a paratenic host. Basically, it means the larvae hatch and start wandering around our bodies, but they're lost. They're in the wrong animal. They can't complete their life cycle and become adult worms. So for the parasite, it's a dead end. But for us, that's when the trouble starts.
So to really see how this plays out in the real world, let's zoom in on one country, the Netherlands. It's a really fascinating case study because you'd think in a place with great vet care and basically no stray dogs, this wouldn't be a problem, right? Well, the parasite is still there.
Now, you'd probably assume dogs are the main source of the problem. And you're not wrong. They contribute about 39% of the eggs in the environment. But check this out. The cat version of this worm, Toxocara cati, from both house cats and strays, actually contributes more, a combined 46%. And look, even wild red foxes are in on the action. It just goes to show you, if we want to get a handle on this, we have to look way beyond just our own pet dogs.
And what makes it so tough to get rid of? Well, one big piece of the puzzle, at least in the Netherlands, is the importation of rescue dogs. A lot of these dogs come from parts of Europe where the parasite is much more common. And you can see it right here in the numbers. The infection rate for local Dutch dogs is under 5%. But for shelter dogs, many of which are imported, it's almost double that. So you've got this constant risk of bringing the parasite right back in and spreading it around.
Okay, so let's get back to what happens when one of those lost, wandering larvae ends up inside a person. The results can be really serious, and figuring out what's going on, well, that's a whole other challenge.
And this is the #1 problem for doctors. Remember how the worms can't grow up in humans? Well, that means they never produce eggs. So a standard stool sample test, which is the go-to for most gut parasites, is completely useless here. It won't find anything. You're literally hunting for a ghost in the machine.
The disease itself is called toxocariasis, and what it looks like really just depends on where those little larvae decide to go for a wander. If they travel through your internal organs, like your liver or lungs, that's called visceral larva migrans, and it causes all sorts of inflammation and fever. If one gets into your eye, and this is just terrifying, it's ocular larva migrans, and it can actually cause blindness. And then in very rare cases, they can even get into the brain, which leads to neurotoxocariasis.
So how on earth do they survive inside us for years with our immune system on high alert? They have this absolutely brilliant trick. The larva is covered in this, think of it like a protective slime coat. When our immune cells show up to attack, the larva just sheds the coat. It's like a spy ditching a disguise. Our immune system is left there attacking an empty shell while the real larva has already slipped away. And that slime coat material? That's what scientists call excretory secretory products. We'll come back to that. So, since we can't find the worm itself or any eggs, how do we diagnose it? The gold standard is a blood test, an ELISA. And remember that slime coat I just mentioned? This test doesn't look for the worm, it looks for our body's reaction to it. It detects the antibodies we create against those excretory secretory antigens. So a positive test tells you you've been exposed, but, and this is a big but, it can't always tell you if the infection is active right now or if it's something you fought off years ago.
Okay, so this parasite is tough, it's stealthy. How do we possibly fight back against it? Well, the strategy is really a three-pronged attack. We need good treatments for people who are already sick, we need solid prevention to stop it from spreading in the first place, and we need to keep pushing the science to find even better tools.
And honestly, this is the part that matters most for every single one of us, prevention. And the good news is, it's pretty straightforward. It just takes a little bit of effort. Number 1, deworm your pets regularly, especially puppies. They're almost guaranteed to get it from their mom, so it's critical. Number 2, and this is a big one, pick up your pet's poop immediately. Don't leave it lying around. And number 3, just good old-fashioned hygiene. Wash your hands, especially after playing with pets or working in the garden, and make sure kids aren't eating dirt or sand.
When it comes to treatment, the standard drug is albendazole, and it works pretty well. But we can always do better. And that's where the research comes in, and there's some really exciting stuff happening. For instance, scientists are developing these new, super-sensitive tests using something called nanobody technology. The goal? To finally be able to detect active infections, not just past ones. They're also digging deep into the worm's biology, looking for new weak spots to target with drugs, and even testing other common drugs like metformin to see if they can give albendazole a boost and make it even more effective.
So we compiled all of this information using a Gemini deep search. If you want to really geek out and go deeper, we've put a detailed list of all our sources in the Notebook LM document. The link is down below. And hey, if you found this interesting or helpful, we'd love it if you'd subscribe to the channel and drop a comment to let us know what you think.
Which really leaves us with one big question. For decades, toxocariasis has been called a neglected parasitic infection, kind of flying under the radar. But now, with a much better understanding of just how common it is, and with all these new tools being developed to fight it, maybe, just maybe, this unseen invader is finally getting the attention it deserves.